From the CyberHub bunker and studio, you're tuning in to the CyberHub Podcast. And now for your host and CISO, James Azar.
What's happening, security gang? Welcome to another episode of the CyberHub Podcast, Wednesday, July 17th, 2024. We've got a packed show today. Packed not in terms of data breach news, but really in vulnerability. So yesterday, we kind of carried a theme on the show. The theme yesterday on kind of what I like to call the slow cyber news cycles really kind of come together because that's when the culmination of stories really take place. Yesterday, we talked about the culmination of the legal challenges, especially seeing, CDK and AT&T pay a ransom, Progress Move It, really kind of going through the process of hundreds of class action lawsuits that are being consolidated. The viable, is the company going to be financially viable after all of this after all the dust settles? Still to be seen. Today, we talk vulnerabilities, and really specifically, a lot of them. So let's go ahead and get the show started. Before we do, please make sure to share, subscribe, like, comment. Good morning to David. Good morning to other LinkedIn users. Good morning to some of our fans that are tuning in on YouTube and X and everywhere else. Thank y'all for being here this morning. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got my double espresso because I travel with an espresso machine, although I don't travel with glass coffee mugs because, they're glass. Coffee cup cheers, y'all. Oh, so good, man. All right. Let's go ahead and start with this Apache Hugegraph server CVE. It's a critical vulnerability, CVE 2024-27348. The risk is around the Apache Hugegraph vulnerability, where it has a flaw in the Gremlin Graph Traversal Language API, which does allow attackers to execute arbitrary code remotely, specifically abusing the API. The Apache Software Foundation issued an urgent advisory urging users to upgrade to version 1.3.0 of Hugegraph Server, which includes critical security fixes and enhancement to reflections filtering within the Huge Security Manager. The update also mandates enabling the auth system and implementing whitelist IP port for added protection of RESTful API executions. And something we often don't talk a lot about on the show, but APIs being kind of really the main interstate of traffic flow and inter-application data transfer is significant. And oftentimes, we don't really follow best practices. And when you look at the tools that are out there today, I go back 4 or 5 years ago when we were implementing my first API security tool. It was really, really extremely challenging. But when you look at it today, when you think of it today, a lot of these tools are in the life cycle from the moment you write your API in Postman to its deployment and then as it's active. And so you really have to do that, and you've got to be able to build a WAF in front of your API, right? So if you don't have a WAF securing your API layer, irregardless to anything else, you still got to have a WAF on your application layer and so forth. But on your API layer, you're definitely introducing risk to your organization. The indiscriminate targeting by threat actor highlights the vulnerability's potential impact across various sectors. They're emphasizing the need for swift action to mitigate the risk. Yesterday, we said 22 minutes from the moment there is a vulnerability or an exploit, 22 minutes before threat actors are taking advantage of it. 22 minutes. And meanwhile, our ability to address vulnerabilities, right, is long. Right, you've got to go through a process. You've got to identify. You've got to open a ticket. You've got to get it to the right team. They've got to have the time to do it. They've got to test it before they deploy it. And so we don't have 22 minutes. We need maybe 3, 4, 5 days in order to properly scope something out. So there's got to be a level of Someone asked me yesterday after the show, after I said that, what do you suggest we do? And I go, you got to build a temporary mitigation plan, right? And this is where kind of the type of team you have for the type of leader really comes into play. So if you're a very technical CISO, you might be able to identify and build your own plan mitigation. But if you're not, then you're going to need your technical team to come through and say, what's a good way to limit access or reduce risk? You won't be able to eliminate the risk, but how do we reduce risk? What's the low-hanging fruit that we can quickly do with our engineering team to get it across the get it across the finish line there. So there's a technical analysis on this. You should read it. Shadow Server says that they can confirm active exploitation attempts of this actually taking place right now. So please make sure you get this addressed. CISA, for their end, are warning of a critical Geoserver GeoTool remote code execution flaw tracked as CVE 2024-36401. And this one is being actively exploited in attacks. That's literally one of the only times CISA will issue these types of advisory. Geoserver is an open source server that allows users to share, process, and modify geospatial data. On June 30th, Geoserver disclosed a critical 9.8 severity remote code execution vulnerability in its GeoTool plugin caused by unsafely evaluating properly names as XPath in expressions. Again, going back to the inner connectivity and logic within an app that plays a significant tool and by a significant role in these types of vulnerabilities. And again, this goes to a good not only QA process from an engineering perspective, but a security QA process that's got to be intertwined and intermined with it. And if you do both effectively, you'll reduce these risks, right? So the XPath evaluation is intended to be used by only complex features like schema data stores and others, but it's incorrectly being applied to simple feature types, which introduces this vulnerability, and it applies to all instances of Geoserver. So you want to make sure you get this patched right away. CISA has already confirmed that this is being used in attacks, and they've given federal agencies until August 5th to patch this. So mind you, you want to get that done. And OSINT search engine Zumai says that there are 16,462 geoservers exposed online. Most are in the US, China, Romania, Germany, and France. This has also been added to the Kev catalog. Crystal Ray, a threat actor known to have used secure shell-based malware to gain access into victim system, has scaled operations over 1,500 victims using an OSS tool, according to a SysDig study. The threat actor installs backdoors to maintain control and uses an SSH snake to spread across network and gather credentials for sale. So this is, when we talked about the decentralization of cybercrime, you have different threat actors that identify a way to sell and look for different ways. They've got a set of expertise. So this person's expertise is specifically around gathering credentials. And this is their method of doing it. And they become an affiliate as part of a greater, as part of potentially multiple different ransomware groups where they're making money off of every single one. But then all they do is they specialize in their specialty. And that's the decentralization of cybercrime. That's why law enforcement and that's why defenders, practitioners like myself have a very, very hard time in dealing with our adversaries because they're never the same. They're a decentralized group that comes from all over the place. And use a variety of tools. So the picture, when you're drawing it, doesn't make any sense until all the pieces come together. And then all of a sudden, all those pieces separately go, all right, there's just someone poking here, someone poking there, someone poking there, someone doing this. But in reality, those people come together in the dark web. And when they do, that's when you see a ransomware attack or a potential data breach in your environment. The threat actor, not only does he steal credentials, they also deploy crypto miners to profit from compromised systems, according to SysDig here. Crystal Ray leverages existing vulnerability proof of concept and uses OSS penetration testing tools to scan a list of target against these vulnerabilities. Once he detects those, he or she, they modify the existing POCs for their payload and drop them onto the victim system for initial access. Crystal Ray uses legitimate OSS organizations, Project Discovery's package manager called PDTM, to access many of their open source tools. For instance, they use the ASN OSINT command line tool for quickly scanning network data and determining an IP range. Once the range has been defined, they use ZMAP to scan specific ports for vulnerable services. Nuclei is then used to perform a vulnerability scan, which enlists the common vulnerabilities and exposures the target host is affected by. And that's how they find it. And then obviously they steal credentials. They go through the environment using Cobalt Strike and other tools in order to do that. So keep an eye for these types of attacks. This is a great security operation manual in order to help your security operations team understand the modus operandi of threat actors. Microsoft says the Scattered Spider cybercrime gang has added QLin ransomware to its arsenal and is now using it in attacks. In the second quarter of this year, Octo Tempest a financially motivated threat actor and most closely tracked ransomware threat actor, added RansomHub and Qlin to its payload in its campaigns that surfaced in early 2022, achieved notoriety following their Octopus campaign that targeted 130 high-profile organizations, including Microsoft, Binance, Coinbase, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, Slack, Twitter, Epic Games, Riot Games, and Best Buy. What a year that was as we were reporting this stuff. The English-speaking gang has also encrypted MGM's resorts after joining Black Cat Alpha 5 last year post-hacker summer camp in Vegas. In November, the FBI and CISA issued an advisory highlighting scattered spiders' tactics, techniques, and procedures. These include impersonating IT employees to trick customer service staff into providing them with credentials or gaining persistence on target networks, using remote access tool, including MFA bombing or fatigue, or SIM swapping attacks. So more warnings from Microsoft there. Ransomware activity in the last quarter jumped by approximately 20% according to ReliaQuest. May was an especially active month due to a spike in posts from the ransomware group Lockbit, which accounted for 36% of the month's alleged victims according to the report. Yet an abnormally slow June dragged the total count of ransomwares down 13% year over year, according to ReliaQuest. So overall, we are seeing an increase in ransomware attacks. That's obviously the case. The Snowflake attack was not a ransomware attack. Snowflake was credential stuffing. They got in, they exfiltrated data. There was no ransomware there, but obviously ransomware remains a threat, something to keep an eye for. FIN7, the financially motivated threat actor, is being observed using multiple pseudonyms across several underground forums to advertise a tool known to be used by ransomware groups like Black Pasta. The AV Neutralizer is a highly specialized tool developed by FIN7 to tamper with security solutions, is being marketed in the criminal underground and used by multiple ransomware groups as a way to disable AV or any sort of EDR or MDR on your environment. FIN7, an e-crime group of Russian and Ukrainian origin, has been a persistent threat actor since at least 2012. These guys have been around for 12 years. The threat actor, which is also tracked under other names like Carbon Spider, Gold Niagara, and we love giving names. That's one thing in cyber we love doing. FIN7 has demonstrated a high level of adaptability and sophistication, as well as technical expertise. They've retooled their tools over and over and over and over again. Some of their members have been arrested, sentenced, and yet they still continue to thrive. Again, the decentralization of these groups where they only know maybe one or two other people. They don't know anyone else. Law enforcement thinks they've got the head honchos, but really they're so decentralized that someone can just come back in, pick it right back up, and go about it. The latest findings from SentinelOne show that FIN7 has not only used several personas on cybercrime forums to promote the sale of the AV Neutralizer, but they've also improvised the tool with new capabilities, and it's being used by Black Basta, among other ransomware groups, so keep an eye out for that. Details are emerging about a massive ad fraud operation that leverages hundreds of apps on the Google Play Store to perform a host of nefarious activity. The campaign was nicknamed Confetti, the Russian word for candy, owing it to its abuse of a mobile advertising SDK associated with Russia-based ad network called Caramel Ads. Confetti represents a new form of fraud and obfuscation in which threat actors operate evil twin versions of decoy twin apps available on major marketplaces, according to a Satori threat intel team in a technical write-up. While the decoy apps totaling more than 250 in number are harmless and distributed via the Google Play Store, their respective evil twins are disseminated through a malvertising campaign designed to facilitate ad fraud, monitor web searches, install browser extensions, and sideload APK file code into user devices. The most unusual aspect of the campaign is that the evil twin masquerades as the decoy twin by spoofing the latter's app ID and advertising publisher IDs for rendering ads. All in all, a massive campaign there. And if you thought awareness training and others were really important, the Linux Foundation and the Open Source Security Foundation did a survey where 1/3 of software development professionals are not familiar with secure software development practices, according to a study that was released yesterday. The report found that 7 in 10 professionals rely on the job training to learn how to incorporate security into their development practice. However, it usually takes 5 years of working experience to achieve minimal knowledge of the subject, according to the survey. The study comes as the industry and federal officials try to root out critical security vulnerabilities. But when you look at this survey, 33% don't. It takes 5 years to get it. It just shows you the work we have cut out for us, not only in the tools we buy, but in the way we evangelize security in our organization and with our engineering team, and a few different ways to go about it. You've really got to hire really, really smart engineering people and put them in a champion program with your engineering team. The way we set policy around software development and the tools we use, there's got to be some significant onboarding training for people to be able to use those tools and incorporate them into their style. And you got to have someone available and ready to help them in the first 30 to 60 days so they're not set back, so to kind of get everything under play. Those are all ways to help eliminate that gap that exists there and produce better software. That's it for our show this morning. We'll be back tomorrow, 9 a.m. Eastern, live to wrap up this really, really busy week. It's been quite the week here. So looking forward to that. Please make sure to comment, like, share, and subscribe when you get a chance. Go check out our Substack, jamesazar.substack.com. Just dropped something around hide and seek with data in your organization, my brand new article. So go check that out, and you can support the show there as well. Till then, have a great rest of your day, and most importantly, y'all, stay cyber safe.
We love feedback, so make sure to connect with us on social media and subscribe to our podcast on your favorite podcast listening platform.